Hi, Mackey's back in town. Yep, the 65-year-old ex-karateka who is going to unveil the truth behind Count Dante, the Black Dragon Fighting Society, and the Green Dragon Fighting Society, as well as the Chicago Dojo Wars, which is a big area of interest. And as I mentioned in my first tape, because this is the second one, Um, I was a teenager when it happened, and I was very seriously into studying Murokan Taekwondo at the time. So it really drew my attention quite intensely. So let me start. I want to explain one thing real quickly that I made reference to in the first tape, um, and that is that when you Google Green Dragon Fighting Society or Green Dragon Society or anything like that, and look in the search for anything related to martial arts, what you're going to find is basically the same posting of a school that says it has an ancestry that's thousands of years old and blah blah blah. And but I have to tell you that is not the Green Dragon Fighting Society. It is. It calls itself that, and I suppose they're entitled to that sort of trademark. But I would like to say that it's not the Green Dragon Fighting Society that was the target of the famous Chicago Dojo War involving the Black Dragon Society, led by the infamous Count Dante Ekajankian, or the other way around, Count Dante Ekajankian. I don't know, however you say it. Um, Hairdresser and famous martial artist. Pardon the tongue in cheek. But he was actually a very good martial artist in the beginning of his career. You have to give him credit for that. But we can go into that later because I'm going to do a separate tape on Count Dante. But I thought the best place to start is, and actually for me, the most interesting place to start is actually by examining the Green Dragon Fighting Society, the original Green Dragon Fighting Society, because it's like this missing link. And the reason I believe that there's a big missing link about it is because it was largely populated by Chicago police. Now, this is not a conspiracy theory. It's known fact that it just happened to be a private school that caught on amongst police, and it wasn't like it was a police-only thing, and nobody hear me say that it was funded by the Chicago police. It just grew a following of Chicago policemen. They taught a style of martial arts that was called Chita Shuang Gung Fu. I say Gung Fu, Gung-Fu, which I believe refers to some area of China separate from what would be called Kung Fu. But anyway, they taught this particular school, and I want to tell you a little bit about it in the form of a story. Like I say, I was in the height of my training. I was training approximately, maybe 8 times a week, which would be like every day, but like twice on Saturday. And, but, as was the tradition back in the old days, you used to go visit other schools, of which there weren't too many, and, usually be treated with respect and, be invited to watch a class, blah, blah, blah. And it was just a respectful thing to do and fun. And so I used to take a ride with my father, for any of you Chicagoans, down Cicero Avenue when I was learning how to drive. And we used to, no, I had looked up in the phone book somehow like Kung Fu, and I came up with Gung Fu, and I noticed there's a place on Montrose and Cicero. And so I said, Dad, while we're taking the drive, let's go pass by it. He said, okay. So we passed by it, and we really can't find it. It's very hard to find. It turns out that it's like a storefront, but it's that kind, like that old-fashioned style of storefront where there's like display windows on each side, and then you walk toward the door and open it and go in. And in the display windows, there's all this strange stuff, like lots of weapons, like weapons you wouldn't even think. I don't even think Quentin Tarantino has come up in Kill Bill 3 with yet. I mean, these really primitive, deadly weapons. There also, interestingly, was a reference to something that was referenced as a death touch, but it wasn't called Dimmak, which Count Dante called it. And it also was kind of interesting, too, because all it was like a picture of a guy slamming like what looked like some sort of claw fist of some kind into like a big bowl of like fine gravel. So it looked like he was just strengthening his fingers, actually. So it looked a little more realistic than, some magic that some guy's heart stops beating after 5 paces. Um, and it was very mysterious. There was no name on the door, just an address, and just all this like martial arts stuff, but lots of weapons. I mean, all over the place. So, of course, I end up some months later getting my driver's license, and of course, I got to go in and check it out. So I went into the school, and I got to tell you, it was okay. I was only 16, but it was one of the scariest experiences of my life. And I was really a well-trained martial artist at the time, and really serious. And I had such a dynamite front snap kick, roundhouse, front roundhouse snap kick. Oh my God, it was unbelievable. I mean, I shouldn't be scared, and I was scared because the vibes in there were so dark. Oh my God, it was dark vibrationally. And a guy came out in an all satin uniform with a sash, and he was real serious, and he tried to talk me out of going to my school and joining his, and he said Mr. Choi's place was basically full of shit, and that's exemplified by the fact that they only fight, with moderate contact. And that's true. That's how 90% of the schools at the time did things. And yes, there was an argument that ended up with now the UFC, which I don't consider martial arts, by the way. It's fighting, but it's not martial arts. But anyway, these guys from this Chita Shuang Kung Fu school called the Green Dragon Society, made up of mostly police. Yes, I'm repeating myself. Were like having like full contact matches, like to get your high rank, whatever it was, some kind of colored sash or something, instructor status. You had to fight off 8 peers, people who are just about ready to take the same test, and you had to just keep fighting them until you couldn't stand anymore. It sounds a little bit like a gang initiation, kind of, but apparently these fights could go on for hours because these guys were just fearless. And again, I say tough as you know what. Let's not take that away from them, okay? Even though I walked out scared. He said to me, why don't you just sign up now? And I said, I have to talk to my father about it. He says, what, aren't you a man? And immediately with the, catch more flies with vinegar than honey. Wouldn't let me in the training room. We just sat in a little area in the front, and the training room was like siphoned off with a curtain. But I walked out scared. And basically, they were the school that was eventually the school that Count Dante picked the wrong fight with. He actually picked the wrong fight with myself as well. Because one time, as I mentioned in the first tape, I was just in the middle of a class, and a whole bunch of guys, Mike Felkoff and what's his name? Jim Konsovic, I think, and all these friends of Count Dante, and Dante himself walks in and just doesn't bow, doesn't do anything, and just walks into a class that my instructor is teaching, and start correcting students in totally different kinds of, like the same technique, but how to do it completely differently. It was so insulting, it was amazing, and everybody was like freezing. And Mr. Choi just walked over and did a reverse spinning back kick, hit him right smack dab in the eyeball. Not Count Dante, but he actually hit Mike Felkoff, who was correcting some student. He just walked up to him very quietly and just spun around and wham. And Felkoff went right on his ass. And instead of a riot breaking out, which I was scared of because I think I was only at that time still maybe 17, Um, they just kind of like put their tail between their legs and walked out. But the same did not happen with the Green Dragon Society. Unfortunately, somebody was killed, which I'll tell you because when I go into actually the Chicago Dojo Wars in and of itself. But I just wanted to explain who they chose to pick on first. It was a ridiculous thing. It scared the hell out of me. I don't know why, unless you have some kind of inferiority complex where you have to be superior to avoid feeling inferior to face off a school like this. It's got spears all over the place. Okay, I mean, weaponry wasn't even popular then. I mean, you have to remember this is before this was Bruce Lee was around. Maybe Jeet Kune Do was, invented at that point. But I mean, it was still very very early, and it was all happening in my favorite town, Chicago. We'll give you the third video this time about the World Karate Federation, which is where it all began. Thank you. Namaste.